2 Samuel 16 and 17, two more chapters today. David, he's on the run from his son Absalom, and he encounters two former members of Saul's household. You know, the king that he took over from, who tried to kill David, and all of the stuff we've been looking at over the books of Samuel. First one, Ziba, who was the steward for Mephibosheth, and Shimei, who is from Saul's clan. Ziba, first one, he blesses David, but kind of at the expense of Mephibosheth, as we'll see. And Shimei curses David, which to then one of David's men goes, "Hey, he cursed you, I'll kill him." And David goes, "No, leave judgment up to God." You know, David's just trusting God in his circumstances. Well, I just want to come back to this blessing and cursing in a little bit, but let's get through the chapter. David's men, they arrive at their first kind of destination, their first stop point, and they're exhausted. But David had left behind someone to try to basically thwart the advice of Ahithophel. Again, Ahithophel, his advice was like just treated as it is the gold standard. You can't get better advice than Ahithophel's advice. And so Ahithophel is giving advice to Absalom, saying, your dad's on the run. He doesn't, they're going to be tired. Now's the time to go after him. Like, just take what forces you have here and get him. Now's your chance. The more time you give him, the less likely, you're going to win. You're going to give him more time. Not good for you. And the person that David had left behind goes, hey, Ahithophel's advice is amazing, yes, but not this time. Your dad, think of his history. He's a guerrilla fighter. He knows the hills. Saul looked after, searched for him for months, couldn't find him. He'll know the places to ambush. It's like, don't rush after him. Wait a little bit, collect the whole army, and go after him with an overwhelming force. And there's a part here where the advice is kind of, go for it now yourself. You'll be there, take the risk, and the other is like, wait, you've got this overwhelming force. You'll be safer. It's not going to cost you as much. And Absalom chooses to wait. And so Ahithophel, when he sees Absalom not taking his advice, kills himself. And again, there's different ideas as to why that is. If it's like, this is a lost battle, I'm done, Absalom's going to lose. But again, we don't know exactly. One of the other things, I just make comment on this, is Absalom putting the tent on the roof of the palace and basically sexually assaulting David's concubines. To take a concubine of a king basically is kind of, again, taking kind of kingship, something that was under the king's authority. There's a cultural thing. There's also a little bit of irony here. Kind of the place where David saw Bathsheba is the place where David's own concubines are taken. So there's this kind of intermixed here where the text and just the way that history kind of works here is just really showing kind of the rebounding nature of sin. Again, there's parts where this never would have happened, almost surely, if David had never done what he had done, starting from the roof of the palace. His grandfather probably would have always been on his side. Absalom then does finally pursue, and the two forces are arrayed for an upcoming battle. Battle will be the next chapter, but here we see before the battle, David receives assistance from three unlikely and unlooked for sources. Ones that could have potentially been expected to be enemies or against David are looking to bless him. So a couple things I want to make mention real quick. David here we see again, trusting God's providence. Now, this word providence does not mean what's going to happen is going to happen and there's nothing you can do about it. That's called fatalism. Basically, kind of like from the word like fate, as in it's destined, nothing can change it. we're just kind of walking through a pre-written script and we have no real say in what's going on. That's not what the Bible shows. The Bible talks about the word as kind of God's providence. And so God's laying a foundation, but our decisions, our actions, our choices matter in God's plan. Now, this leads to a whole kind of theological debate of like, how does that work? And when did God plan this? And how does all those things? For that, I go, it's an interesting conversation, but the Bible holds two very strong truths in tension, as a bit of a paradox. God is sovereign, and God has given free will. God has given free moral, choice ability to human beings, and those choices matter in God's sovereign design. How that all mixes and mingles, theologians speculate and argue and debate, and there's interest there. But as long as we keep those two, this isn't a big deal where we exactly fall, as long as we don't leave them separated in some way. And some Christian theologians have. It's all God and our choices really don't matter. Everything's predetermined, or God really has kind of started the thing off and then we're kind of running the show. Neither of those are the biblical story. We're not passive in God's active will. We're called to actively seek God's will because he is seeking relationship with us, and there's part where he wants us to participate. Last thing I'll mention real quick is, again, just the beginning of the chapter. We're going to see the one who blessed David actually end up kind of being a bit of a curse, or kind of was being negative, and the one who cursed David ends up being one who kind of he repents and says, I was wrong. So it's a thing of how people treat us, today. Let's watch our response. Take an example from David. Let's not overreact and react in the moment, but allow time and God to work to show where the true heart of the person is. And there's lots of stuff to think about. These chapters are just full of things to reflect on. And so as you do, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today may you know his peace. God bless.